The lake was quiet in the early morning. A thin mist floated above the water, and the air felt cool and clean. Near the edge of the lake stood an old wooden bench. Its paint was faded, and the wood was worn smooth by time. People passed by it every day, but few ever stopped. For Daniel, this bench had become a place of comfort. Daniel came to the bench every morning before work. He sat there with a warm cup of tea, watching the gentle movement of the water. The lake never rushed him. It never asked questions. It simply listened. After losing his job months ago, Daniel felt lost. His days felt empty and his nights felt long. The bench by the lake was the only place where his thoughts felt calm. Each morning he watched the sun rise slowly, painting the water with soft gold and pale pink colors. Birds skimmed the surface, and leaves drifted quietly near the shore. Daniel often thought about his life there. He wondered how things had changed so quickly. He had once been busy, confident, and full of plans. Now he felt unsure of what came next. One morning, Daniel noticed someone else sitting on the bench. It was an older woman with silver hair tied neatly back. She sat straight, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the lake. She did not speak, and Daniel did not want to disturb the silence. He sat at the far end of the bench, leaving space between them.
Day after day, they shared the bench in quiet peace. They never spoke, but Daniel felt a strange comfort in her presence. It was as if the bench had decided they both needed the same quiet place. The woman came every morning, always at the same time, always wearing a soft-colored coat. One morning, the woman spoke. Her voice was gentle and calm. She asked Daniel if he came there often. He smiled and nodded. He told her the bench helped him think. She smiled softly and said it helped her remember. Her name was Margaret. Margaret told Daniel that her husband used to sit on that bench with her many years ago. They would come early, just like this, and watch the lake wake up. After he passed away, she stopped coming for a long time. Recently, she felt ready to return. The bench, she said, held their memories. Daniel listened carefully. He realized the bench was not only holding his worries, but also her memories. It had seen joy, loss, love, and waiting. It had never judged. It had simply stayed. As the days passed, Daniel and Margaret began to talk more. They shared small stories. Daniel spoke about his job, his fears, and how unsure he felt about the future. Margaret listened with kindness. She never rushed him or offered quick advice. She only reminded him that life moves in seasons, just like the lake. Some mornings, the lake was calm and smooth. Other days, the wind rippled the water, and clouds covered the sky. Margaret pointed out how the lake always changed, yet remained the same lake. Daniel began to understand. His life, too, was changing, but it was not over. One morning, Daniel arrived early and found the bench empty. The lake felt colder than usual. He waited, hoping Margaret would appear, but she did not come. He felt a quiet worry, but he reminded himself that everyone has days they cannot return. She did not come the next day either, or the day after that. Daniel missed her presence more than he expected. The bench felt different without her. It was still peaceful, but something was missing. On the fourth day, Daniel noticed a small envelope placed carefully on the bench. His name was written on it in neat handwriting. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside was a short letter from Margaret. She wrote that she had to move to live with her daughter in another city. She thanked Daniel for listening and for sharing the bench with her. She wrote that he had helped her heal more than he knew. At the end of the letter, she reminded him not to give up on his own path. Daniel sat quietly for a long time after reading the letter. The lake reflected the sky above, just as it always had. He felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. He realized that even short connections can leave deep marks on the heart. Weeks passed, and Daniel continued to visit the bench. He no longer felt as lost as before. Margaret's words stayed with him. He began to apply for jobs again, slowly and without fear. He reminded himself that life moves forward, even when it feels still. One morning, Daniel brought a small notebook with him. He began to write on the bench. He wrote about the lake, the mornings, the quiet talks, and the lessons he had learned. Writing made him feel lighter. The bench had become a place of new beginnings. As spring arrived, the trees around the lake grew green again. Flowers appeared near the water's edge. The bench looked the same, but Daniel felt different. He felt ready. On his last morning at the bench, before starting a new job, Daniel placed a small note under the seat. It was for anyone who might sit there after him. It said that this bench listens, and that no feeling lasts forever. Daniel stood up and looked at the lake one last time. The water shimmered under the sunlight. He smiled softly and walked away, carrying the quiet strength the bench had given him. The bench by the lake remained, waiting patiently. It would be there for the next person who needed a moment of peace, a place to remember, or the courage to begin again. As the weeks turned into months, the bench continued to be a quiet witness to Daniel's changing life. Even on days when he felt busy or tired, he found himself drawn back to the lake. Sitting there reminded him to slow down and breathe. The water still moved gently, and the sky still changed its colors each morning, offering comfort without asking for anything in return. Daniel often thought about Margaret and wondered how she was doing in her new home. Sometimes he imagined her sitting by another window, watching a different view, carrying the same calm within her. He realized that some people enter our lives not to stay forever, but to guide us through a certain moment. That thought no longer made him sad. Instead, it filled him with quiet appreciation. The bench became a place where Daniel learned to listen to the world and to himself. He noticed the small details he had once ignored, the sound of birds at dawn, the way light danced on the water, the peaceful rhythm of nature. These moments helped him understand that life does not always need loud success to feel meaningful. On difficult days, Daniel remembered Margaret's words about seasons. Just as winter fades into spring, uncertainty slowly gives way to clarity. He stopped fearing pauses in life and began to respect them. They were not signs of failure, but moments of rest before growth. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Daniel sat on the bench and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He realized he was no longer searching for answers. He was learning to trust the journey. The bench by the lake had taught him patience, resilience, and the quiet strength found in stillness. As he stood up to leave, Daniel touched the worn wood of the bench gently. He smiled, knowing that wherever life took him next, a part of his heart would always remain there, by the lake, on that simple bench that helped him find himself again.